Well, can we kick off a Friday by thanking you for your generosity yesterday? Look at this record-setting number from yesterday's 11th annual Children's Miracle Network Miracle Day of Hope. Every dollar staying in Kansas City, helping out the kids at the KU Medical Center and working through the University of Kansas health system. $107,060. Let's go. Woo! How about that? Man, you guys knocked it out of the park. That represents our largest single day amount received from listener donations here at Cumulus, Kansas City. Absolutely unbelievable. Your generosity was on display yesterday. You were helping 50,000 kids in Kansas City who used these services just last year alone. And you made a world of difference in the lives of not just the kids, but the families. From throwing birthday parties to getting stuffies for kids in the hospital to life-saving medical equipment and research, you made a huge difference yesterday. And eventually, I'll go through the list. I don't have our top donor list just yet. I'll get that today from the Children's Miracle Network staff. But the top 10 donors from yesterday will get that personally inscribed copy of Bill O'Reilly's Confronting Evil. So I'll reach out to everybody who was on that list. I know we had many donors, over $1,000 a pop. So I'm looking forward to going through that list today and expect to hear from me in the next, give me a few days on it, but we'll get you all taken care of. Just unbelievable. And I cannot thank you enough for your generosity yesterday. It's one of my favorite shows of the year, and that's because I get to brag about you and this audience, and we get to showcase what exactly this audience is all about and the generosity that this audience has, especially this time of year. So well done. Thank you, thank you, thank you for just an amazing, amazing day yesterday. So I was thinking about this record-setting day that we had yesterday, and I was thinking about it in the wake of, obviously, what has been the big conversation around the country over the last few weeks. And that is what? Affordability, affordability, affordability. Speaking of Bill O'Reilly, who's going to give you those signed copies to our top 10 donors, O'Reilly told a story the other day on the air about how President Trump yelled at him on the phone because O'Reilly has been honest about how the affordability issue may be the thing that hurts Trump and the GOP coming up in these midterms. Now, I've said the same thing. The difference is Trump doesn't call me up and yell at me because obviously this platform, as much as it's a massive platform in Kansas City, is not Bill O'Reilly's platform. And I'm okay with that. That's why Bill comes here on KCMO once in a while and shares his thoughts exclusively with you and with us in Kansas City because he knows what we've got on KCMO Talk Radio. That being said, Bill understands, as I think many people who are clear-eyed, that if the economic situation by and large does not improve, even though many of us believe President Trump is on the right path with his economic policy, if things do not dramatically improve, voters have short-term memories, and they'll just say, well, time to give the other party a chance. Well, things aren't dramatically better, so we'll just go back to the other guys. Even though, let's be honest, the other guys are the ones that gave us 9% inflation. Some of that was going to happen anyway in the wake of COVID because COVID was so stupid with how we went about our policy and the incredible spending and the stimmies and the other nonsense we were doing, the PPP loans and things like that. So inflation was going to happen. But then, of course, the last guy put it on steroids.
Come on, man.
Because he passed things like the Inflation Reduction Act, which just skyrocketed inflation and took things from what would have been sticky inflation to obviously 40-year highs on inflation in late 21, 22, and 23. But now you look at it, and it's amazing how the media suddenly cares about what's affordable and what's not. And this piece yesterday from CBS News stood out to me. Headline, Trump says U.S. prices are coming down tremendously. Here's what the data actually shows. They write here, inflation dipped to a low this year of 2.3% in April, but it has steadily ticked up since then and now stands at the same rate as in January when President Trump was inaugurated. Economists attribute the rise partly to Trump administration's new tariffs on imports, with Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell pointing to those levies as a key factor behind the recent uptick. So they're really going through and really nitpicking on some of the policy of this administration. And I don't mind that, but the way that they are also rewriting history. I look through this piece, and the name Joe Biden only comes up once, and it's in a quote from Donald Trump. They write here, from a longer-term perspective, inflation has indeed fallen sharply since hitting a 40-year high of about 9% in June of 2022 in the aftermath of the pandemic. As if we got to 9% inflation of June of 22 simply because of the pandemic. That ain't true. First off, it's because of the policies implemented during the pandemic. Now, yes, some of those were Trump during his first, few months or the few months of the pandemic when, yes, there was too much stimulus money injected into the economy. But then, of course, Pops came in January of 21, and Pops just lit the whole thing on fire, man. You passed the Inflation Reduction Act in April of 2021, and that just, if you wanted to ignite inflation to 40-year highs, you would have done exactly what that guy did when he got in. So the way that CBS News is framing this is just wildly disingenuous. Now, it's not going to shock anybody, but it is. And this is the uphill battle that this administration is fighting. I'm not saying every economic lever that this administration has pulled has been perfect. I still wonder whether or not these tariffs are going to work out the way they claim they're going to work out. But I'm willing to give them a little bit of time or a little bit more time. But they've got this uphill battle because you do have, by and large, a media establishment that is dead set on suddenly caring about the affordability crisis and the issues that, frankly, millions of Americans have been feeling for years. They just care about it now because it's politically convenient for their preferred political party. So Caroline Leavitt's the White House press secretary, and she came out yesterday and spent about 5 minutes in her press conference talking about this. And she's actually selling it in a smarter, more effective way than her boss, the president, has over the last few weeks.
On the economic front, after inheriting the worst inflation crisis in over 4 decades, President Trump's pro-growth policies are making tremendous progress to make America affordable again. Under the painful Biden years, inflation reached a record high 9% and devoured Americans' purchasing power. In President Trump's term thus far, inflation has dropped to an average of just 2.7%, marking critical progress.
All right, that's great. Great. Give me the numbers. That's fantastic. That's the pitch I want to hear right there. Here's where we were, here's where we are, and here's why we believe our policies are going to continue to make things better for everyday Americans. Not this hey, buy fewer dolls or, what was it? The interview with Politico last week when the president was asked, what would you grade the economy? And he's like, A plus, 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 plus. I think I got enough pluses in there. It's like, I know you maybe don't want to give yourself a grade, but just say, hey, we walked into an economy that was a D, and we're making it better every day. That's it. But you can't tell everybody everything's great when there still is, yes, some pain out there. So Caroline Leavitt did a very good job explaining this yesterday. And frankly, it's this kind of stuff that the boss man needs to take from her.
The Trump administration is working hard every single day to bring down the cost of living through bigger paychecks and lower prices. Real wages are finally on the rise again and on pace to increase to roughly $1,200 for the average American worker this year. To put that into perspective, real wages declined by almost $3,000 under the Biden administration. That means Americans right now are on track already to make up 1/3 of the $3,000 in lost wages under Joe Biden. There's much work to do, but this has already been significant progress.
That's it. There's much work to do, says Caroline Leavitt. But this has been significant progress. When you talk about real wages, that is, how are the wages stacking up versus the cost of living? and it's going to take time. As someone notes right now on the text line, 913-408-7957. Pete, let's also not forget 2% inflation right now on top of 9% still means it's going to take a while for prices to at least stabilize to where people feel like they've come down. Exactly right. It's simple math. The wages did not keep up the last few years, so the pinch is still real, even if inflation is down to that 2% number, because you're talking about 2% on top of what has been obviously a half decade of really sticky inflation. That's exactly right. But also, the big guy's got to learn from what Caroline Levitt was saying yesterday. Little bit of empathy can go a long way. But we also know this. We had a record day yesterday for Children's Miracle Network. So thank you for that. I do believe people are starting to feel better about things overall, regardless of what the mainstream media coverage is going to be. And I think you saw some of that on display here in Kansas City with your generosity on our Children's Miracle Network Miracle Day of Hope. Now, in Missouri, I watched this on the local news last night, and this was driving me nuts. You want to talk about disingenuous on what is actually great policy. This was it yesterday. I will share it with you coming up next, 6:15. Welcome in. Happy Red Friday on KCMO. Well, I love this from the state of Missouri and from the USDA, who was joined by RFK, of course, Health and Human Services Secretary, to announce this week the approval of 6 new state SNAP food choice waivers under the Make America Healthy Again, MAHA initiative. The waivers were submitted by Missouri, Hawaii, North Dakota, South Carolina, Virginia, and Tennessee. And what this will do will amend the statutory definition of food for purchase under the SNAP food stamp program beginning next year. So in Missouri, what you're going to have now is that if you get food stamps, you will not be able to buy certain things like candy, prepared desserts, soft drinks, and beverages with 50% or less natural fruit or vegetable juice, beverage mixes, and drink concentrates. I love this because what you've had going on for far too long is people overly reliant on food stamps. I'm all about a safety net. I understand that people do need help and need a handout at times. I'm not an anti-food stamp guy. But what I am against is this idea that food stamps becomes a lifestyle for people. It keeps them in poverty. They buy garbage junk food. That then makes them unhealthy. And then what happens on the back end? Oftentimes it's costing the American taxpayer through Medicaid. And it's just unhealthy, right? Just for the people on it. I know we want to be generous. We want to help people in need. That's who we are as a country. But are you really helping people? Like, are you genuinely helping people? If you're making food stamps a lifestyle, they're buying junk food with it, and then they're literally slowly killing themselves by using those food stamps to ingest garbage. And also they're doing it to their kids. Is that really something we want to promote in this country? The answer should be overwhelmingly no. This is not a partisan issue. I know that, some people are going to sit there and say, well, it's Trump, it's Maha, it's RFK, it's bad. Well, first off, Hawaii's doing this. That was one of the states. Hawaii's, underratedly one of the bluest states in the country. I know it was overwhelmingly red states that asked for this, but once again, the states that submitted these waivers, Missouri, North Dakota, South Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, okay, red states, and Hawaii, which is a very healthy state, I will add. It's a blue state, but a very healthy state. They get it. So what's the local approach yesterday? This was really embarrassing from harvesters. I saw this on Channel 9 last night and listened to the coverage of how they went about talking about this new rule that's going to be in place starting in 2026 in Missouri that will no longer allow you to buy basically junk food or junk drinks with your food stamps.
Elizabeth Keever, Chief Resource Officer at Harvesters, says low-income families will feel the changes.
You're going to see families who are going to have to choose between whether or not They can buy this granola bar that might be considered candy depending on what order those ingredients are listed on in the back.
Significant.
Okay. Oh, and? I mean, I'm sorry if you're getting a handout from the government and you have to do a little research as to what you are allowed to buy based on what is considered healthy and what is not. Okay. Sorry.
An amazing grasp of the obvious.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's the point.
That's the point. That's the point. I mean, harvesters coming out against the idea that food stamps that are given to Missourians should not be used on junk food and junk drinks is something I didn't have on my bingo card over the last few weeks. And I don't know why harvesters would be against this. Is it political? I don't understand why harvesters would be like, oh boy, now these people have to figure out what granola bars they can buy. Okay, I'm sorry, we're trying to have some standards to make sure that government money used in the food stamp business is not then getting people sicker by allowing them to buy junk. I don't know. I would think that harvesters would be in support of this.
Look for your new bingo card in the mail where it's amended. They'll cover the murder hornet over with this.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's exactly right. Let's continue. Channel 9.
Governor Mike Kehoe praised the move, calling it a step towards improving nutrition for families. But Keever claims it will do the exact opposite.
Just by restricting certain items, it just makes it more burdensome for stores.
And as many families prepare for those SNAP changes by next October, local nonprofits are already seeing the need to grow.
Why? Why? Because you got to get processed desserts in there? Local nonprofits are already seeing the need to grow because Missouri is saying and has passed a law that was approved by the USDA saying that you cannot buy sweetened foods and drinks with your SNAP money. No more candy and prepared desserts and soft drinks. So why would that require, I'm just thinking through this logically, why would that suddenly require organizations like harvesters to have to grow? So you can inject Dr. Pepper into the veins of poor people on food stamps and make them more sick? I'm sorry, John. I know you got a liter of Dr. Pepper in there. It's just the first thing that came to mind.
Yes, but I purchased it. I didn't go down and ask for it for free.
That's true. That's true. I don't understand why harvesters would get in the way of this and why they would somehow try to frame this thing as oh, boy, this is so bad for poor people. And, boy, we're going to need more resources now more than ever. If harvesters is in the business of trying to basically fill in the gaps of giving candy and prepared desserts and soft drinks to poor people on food stamps, I wouldn't give them a dime. And I like harvesters. I think they've done a good job. I've given them money before. But if this is going to be their thing that they try to take the high ground on, I'm out, man. I am totally out on that. Stay out of it, harvesters. This has nothing to do with you. You do a great job. You have a really good organization. But whether or not people on food stamps can buy prepared desserts, it's like my girls always see these cookies in the local grocery stores that's, like Mahomes and Kelsey and the numbers and Chiefs things. And it's all junk, and we probably get it once a year. But you know what? If you can't buy those things with food stamps, that ain't a bad thing. There's no downside to that. And harvesters they've got to stay out of this one. Coming up next on KCMO Talk Radio on a Friday morning, it does not look like healthcare is going anywhere right now in D.C. besides the fact that Roger Marshall is trying to make a push. We'll explain next. Republicans are, I think, pretty screwed on this topic. And deep down, I believe they know it, and they don't know what to do about it. And it's the issue of Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, subsidies that, of course, are set to expire coming up here at the end of the year. And Democrats are putting the screws to them. This is why the government was shut down for so many weeks. And now we're sitting here in mid-December. It's a Friday morning. And the Senate has no intention of doing anything about this. So what you had happen yesterday is the Senate rejected legislation to extend Affordable Care Act tax credits, which essentially will guarantee that millions of Americans will see a pretty steep rise in costs at the beginning of the year. Now, Republicans are in the right in the sense that these subsidies were put in place during COVID. It was supposed to be basically a way to help people out during COVID. COVID's been over for 5+ years, right? But they kept the gravy train going on these tax credits because, well, it kept people's costs down because the Affordable Care Act is not actually affordable. Talk
about a bombshell.
I know. Great name, just like Biden's Inflation Reduction Act. Great name, but straight out of 1984. All right, George Orwell is somewhere blushing on the name of these bills. The Inflation Reduction Act, which skyrocketed inflation. The Affordable Care Act, which has done nothing but made health care less affordable. But, you know, this is obviously something that they've had political success with. So now Republicans decide this year, hey, these tax credits for Obamacare have got to end. I mean, you know, it's supposed to be a handout during COVID, help people out. And now we're sitting here 5 years later, and the program is crumbling. But at the same time, you know and I know, if people see a major spike in their premiums, which they're going to see next year, they will blame the people in charge. They'll look at the Republicans and they'll say, this is on you guys. Well, no, the system's completely broken. It needs to be torn apart. It needs to start over. But in 2025, in a TikTok culture where people are swiping and not paying attention and largely brain dead, they're just going to be like, well, the guys in charge are to blame for this. My costs went up. Put the other guys in charge. They won't take a step back and look at this and say, how did we get here? And we got here because the Affordable Care Act is no longer affordable. If it's only affordable when the government subsidizes it to the tune of $150 billion, then memo, it's really not affordable. It's not. But the Republicans have not had an answer for any of this. And Democrats know that. So the Democrats are playing the political game. And right now, they're in the lead. They're ahead. Because for 15 years, the GOP has sat on its hands and done nothing about this. And now, with 3 weeks to go until the end of the year, they're scrambling and they're looking for answers. Now, Roger Marshall, our U.S. Senator here in Kansas, he was on the Senate floor yesterday, and he's got a plan. He's, of course, a doctor by trade. He knows the industry very well. He's got a plan. The problem is the votes are not there to get his plan passed in the U.S. Senate. You need 60 votes, obviously, to pass something. You have about 54 Republicans, and you've got 45, 46 Democrats. So you would need some people to cross the aisle. The Democrats know they've got the Republicans up against the wall here. So politically, they feel like there's no reason to go ahead and do anything the Republicans want to do on this issue, even if, as Roger Marshall laid out, he's got a pretty good plan that has some pretty darn good ideas in it.
Let me just sum up briefly what our plan does, and then I'll maybe go a little bit deeper. Number one is we address the fraud. Number two, we extend the Obamacare, the Biden era extended subsidies for another year. We fund CSRs. We address fraud, if I didn't say that yet. And then starting in 2027, we would start taking some of that money that we were using on these extended subsidies. That's about $35 billion a year. We would start putting that into your debit card, into your healthcare debit card. Thousands of dollars per family. For some it might be $7,000, for some it might be $5,000, but we want you to start making choices. And then lastly, what our bill does, and this is really why I'm so confused why Democrats would walk away from this. If there was one good thing about Obamacare, it was addressing pre-existing conditions, and we'll talk about that more in a second. But our bill funds invisible, high-risk reinsurance pools. So it's like belts and suspenders for people that develop high-risk conditions.
Roger Marshall rhetorically asks there, Kansas U.S. Senator, why Democrats would walk away from his plan. And his plan's a pretty good one. Basically, like we have an HSA, so we have this debit card that has money on it through our health savings account, and we can use it for different health things. Kids go to the doctor or whatever, or, I chip a tooth. I could use it at the dentist if I wanted to. I didn't use it the other day when I got my teeth straightened out there because it was only like $52. I couldn't believe it. I was like, and Kate has the HSA card anyway, so I didn't have it on me. But I was like, $52, geez, not bad. But Roger Marshall's idea is a good one, which is give the power to the people. Get the cost down by giving people and the free market the opportunity to operate instead of just giving the money directly to the insurance companies. But he asks the question rhetorically there, why the Dems would walk away from his plan. Because they've got you guys over a barrel here right now. That's why they see no reason to compromise with you guys. Because for so long, you haven't had a plan. And I don't mean this to Roger Marshall. I mean it to the party at large. You haven't had a plan. You got nothing to latch onto. And Dems are like, why are we going to give you a political win right now? They don't need to do it. On the text line, Pete, Republicans have come up with nothing. It's been 15 years. I know. And yes, they were going to vote down Obamacare. And then the whole John McCain thing happened a few years ago. Yeah, we all remember that. But to the point of that texter, yeah, they really haven't come up with anything. And now with 3 weeks to go before the end of the year, and you know and I know, nothing of note and substance actually happens this time of year. I mean, it barely happens any time of year. Never mind this time of year. They're like, why are we going to give you guys a win on this whole thing? Why bother? Why do it? On the text line, 913-408-7957. Pete, the GOP has a plan, so why do you say they are sitting on their hands? They have a plan at the 11th hour when they need Democrat support, and the Dems have absolutely no reason to give them a win. It's not just about having a plan. It's about when you put your plan together. And think about this. They wanted to phase out the subsidies. This was the plan all along. And they had to eventually realize that the Democrats were going to basically use this against them. And until the Democrats did use this against them and did force a government shutdown, which, yes, was all on the D's, there was no plan. Until this became a huge topic of conversation the last couple of months, Republicans had no plan. I don't know if they were just hoping that the subsidies were going to go away and nobody was going to notice, but that's where these guys aren't thinking 2 steps ahead. You knew your political opponents were going to use this against you. You knew then the media was going to beat you over the head with it, and you guys did nothing. And you had nothing in the pipeline to combat it. Nothing whatsoever. And I'm not saying that policy-wise they're wrong. They're not wrong. They're right to say that taxpayers should not be footing the bill for a failed Obamacare system. But then you've got to think about, okay, how do I actually go about changing this? And what do I do? You know what's interesting, too, yesterday? I saw this. Speaking of our local senators, you had Roger Marshall, who's a doctor by trade, laying out his plan yesterday. The Senate voted to not move forward with the Democratic bill. They want to extend the Obamacare subsidies. So that didn't pass, and then the Republican plan didn't pass. But Josh Hawley in Missouri voted with the Democrats yesterday. So the Senate voted 51-48 to not move ahead with the Democratic bill to extend Obamacare subsidies. Josh Hawley voted with the Democrats. He is running for president. Let's be very clear. Josh Hawley is going to be in Iowa probably this time next year, stumping and running for president. And he's going to do it on a Bernie Sanders conservative Christian platform that I don't know actually exists. But he thinks that lane does. Populism mixed with, breaking up the big tech companies and kind of a Bernie Sanders strain, but then also having a Christian conservative element to his pitch. That's the lane that Josh Hawley's going to run in. He voted yesterday with Democrats to extend Obamacare subsidies. Fascinating. And it's really about, I think, what he's setting up for in 2028. Big headline here from the Associated Press they dropped last night. Office holiday parties can be dreadful for introverts and people with social anxiety. A story on how to handle the holiday party. All right. You guys going to the holiday party next week, by the way? I'm gonna see you out there.
Be there later.
Yeah, I'll be there a little late. We've got the city tournament for basketball Tuesday afternoon. So.
All right. So you're going to stop by, though, Mark?
I'll be there late, yeah.
Mark's always the guy at the holiday party, and when they're doing the giveaways, he's trying to figure out how to basically collect as much free stuff as he can.
Oh, yeah.
That's who Mark is.
That's the best way to avoid the insecurities that I have around the office. Just kidding.
Well, this article starts off, by the way, with a radio station story. It says here, the year the radio station company where he worked held its holiday party at a dive bar, Ryan Arnold walked in and saw coworkers passing around a tall glass boot filled with beer. Boy, was that at our party one year? I don't think so. He heard the office manager belting out 80s power ballads between whiskey shots. Arnold's first thought was, when can I leave? Well, this was actually 20 years ago, as the article notes. More than 20 years later, he still remembers that awkward social event he felt obligated to attend. Arnold, 46 years old, who describes himself as socially anxious, now thinks twice before accepting invitations to group gatherings. Yeah, that's when radio was really going wild.
Yeah, 10 years ago, they didn't have HR videos to watch.
Do we have another one to do here in the next couple of weeks?
Probably.
Gosh, every month I'm like, I just did one of these HR videos. Either you think I'm a good person or you don't. Leave me alone with this crap. Man. All right. Goes on to say here, for many introverts, shy individuals, and people with social anxiety, mingling at parties is often draining or arouses uncomfortable emotions. The internal debate about whether or not to attend large get-togethers can get especially intense during the holiday season, a time when many coworkers celebrate with cocktail hours, gift exchanges, and other forms of organized fun. Attending work parties also leaves some people feeling uncertain about professional boundaries, which can get murky at events where people drink alcohol. Therapists and workers who consider themselves shy or introverted shared tips for surviving and potentially enjoying winter festivities, whether with coworkers, family, or friends. All right, who's ready for the tips? Ready for the tips? Tip number 1, dress for comfort. It's like John. I mean, John's always dressing good, man. John shows up at these things, and boy, he just knocks it out of the park. John doesn't, people always ask. I mean, I do these happy hours, these politics and a pints. It's like people just want to talk to John. They want to say, where's John? Where's John? I don't know why I show up to these things.
Yeah, I think yearbook picture when I go to these events. And so I don't normally wear that type of thing around.
No. That's why it's obviously extra special when you show up. It's like going to the, No Kings protest. You got to have the right outfit, whether it's the fishnet tee or whatever it might be. It's got to be the right setup. Dress for comfort. Arrive early and head to the middle. Don't stand on the outside. Plan talking points. Don't stress about awkward silence. Seek allies or bring support. So for you introverts, those are some tips that you need if you've got your holiday party coming up. All right? That's all I got for you.
There's one more for our party. If Chuck asks you if you want to go camping, the answer is always no.
Yeah. I've learned this with Chuck Nasty over on 101 The Fox. If Chuck asks you to do anything, the answer is no. Okay? I don't care what it is. Chuck Nasty, just think no.
I've given him a ride before, and maybe I should have said no.
Yeah. Keatsman has never met Chuck Nasty. These guys have never seen each other.
Uh-oh.
2 radio legends in Kansas City do not know each other. So I'm hoping that Chuck will be at the holiday party, although we'll have to wait and see how Chuck's holding up that
Usually
day.
there.
Yeah, I think so. All right, Mike in Kansas City, what advice do you have, my man? Go ahead.
Yeah, the article's aimed obviously to woke people because that's what most articles are, and you basically summed up the woke movement. They're made up of people who are insecure, they don't do well in crowds, they don't do anything, so they were that way in grade school, high school, college. Now they dye their hair pink, put safety pins through their nose, and go protest ICE or whatever, the cause of the day is.
Listen, Mike, I appreciate the outside the box thinking. Let's be honest. That is a total stretch and blanket statement.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, you're
sorry,
right.
It
There's
isn't.
no introverts who are conservatives. You're right, Mike. Conservatives
there
love
are
to
introverts
party.
that are conservative. No, they're introverts that aren't conservative. They just manage it better. An introvert's conservative thinks that, the problem is with him. An introvert who's liberal thinks the problem is with society.
Here's what I would say.
Basically the thing.
I think it's geared towards younger people because younger people are more likely to work from home, be more socially awkward. Listen, I work with people who are, I'm not an old guy, right? I'm millennial. But you get some of the Gen Zers, and God bless them, they're all pleasant. But you get around them, and it's like, hello. Do you speak English? Do you talk if I say hello to you in the hallway? Are you a mute? What are you laughing at there, Mark? Stop.
Yeah.
You're right?
I've seen it.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think it's more about a generational thing than it is about anything political. This is just a wild story out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, where they are now searching for a new head football coach after they fired Sharon Moore on Wednesday. So this happened while we were at the happy hour that we did at Beck's Place in Overland Park. So I get out of that. I look at my phone for the first time in a couple hours. And I'm like, what? And not only did they fire this guy, but the reports that are coming out as to what has happened in the wake of this firing of Sharon Moore are just wild. So here are the allegations. First off, he's sitting in jail right now because not only did he allegedly have a relationship with a staffer that went sideways, he reportedly became suicidal after he got fired on Wednesday. He took a knife. He went to his mistress's apartment, and reports are suggesting that he went there and he threatened her and he threatened himself. And that's why he's sitting in a jail cell. This is not just, hey, powerful multi-million-dollar football coach has an affair and, oh boy, this is a bad look and now he's got a lot of family problems and he gets fired. He is sitting in a jail cell. So there are obviously serious allegations in the wake of his firing and in the wake of this alleged affair going public that have taken this thing to a whole different level from your Bobby Petrino, former Arkansas coach, or any of these other coaches who, let's be honest, not the first one to end up in a fling with a staffer. These guys spend, 18, 20 hours a day at their facility. They have young women who are obviously working on the staff, and none of this is excusing any of it at all. It's just saying you've seen this story happen before. But what makes this beyond bizarre is the fallout from it because the coach is sitting in a jail cell. And charges are expected to be dropped at some point this morning when it comes to the former Michigan head coach, Sharon Moore, who took over for Jim Harbaugh, who's now, of course, the head coach of the Chargers, who are coming to Kansas City on Sunday to play the Chiefs. So he's set for a court appearance this morning when we'll find out what exactly these charges are going to be. But the university previously investigated claims of this inappropriate relationship with a staffer. He denied it. He then gets fired when the staffer comes forward with evidence of the affair after he axed her. Michigan football insiders are reporting, per ESPN, that Moore had been acting strange and berating assistant coaches. And then he shows up to her apartment, allegedly, with a knife following his firing. Now, this coach has a wife and 3 little kids at home, too. That's just the tragic part about this. But you know what's really weird and bothersome is that some people are going to try to make out Sharon Moore to be the victim here. And I find that to be disgusting. The victim, allegedly, may be the staffer who was threatened with a knife. The other victims are his family. And that's it. Sharon Moore, based on these reports, not a victim. But yesterday, there was a report here from NBC that Michigan had been alerted prior to Wednesday that Sharon Moore was dealing with mental health issues. Yet the athletic director fired him alone with no HR rep and no security present. Oh, jeez. Oh, he didn't have the HR rep present as he was dealing with mental health issues. You got to be bleeping kidding me with that. Jeez. His wife's the victim, the kids are the victim, the staffer's potentially the victim, not the guy who gets fired without the HR rep present. My gosh.
Kilmar is our neighbor. You can't have him, Trump. No!
Kilmar is our neighbor. You can't have him, Trump. No! Heck no!
Kilmar is our neighbor. You can't have him, Trump. No!
No!
Kilmar is our neighbor. You can't have him, Trump.
Heck no! I love that.
They just ripped the whole thing off of another protest. Which side are you on? It's the same, too.
Everybody now.
That's the
Which
thing.
side are you on?
So
Nothing new since Woody Guthrie.
So that was from August, and that was in reference to Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who is back in the news this morning. A federal judge blocked the government from re-detaining Kilmar Abrego Garcia at a scheduled Immigration and Customs Enforcement check-in this morning. The intervention came after the same judge ruled yesterday that the Trump administration lacked legal authority to continue holding Abrego in an immigration detention center. Abrego was detained during a similar scheduled check-in back in August. This is wild. You've got a unelected bureaucrat, a judge, basically saying that the executive branch cannot enforce the laws of the country. That whether or not you think Kilmar Abrego Garcia should be deported or not, I mean, that's obviously left up to you on whether or not you think that rises to the point of deportation. But it doesn't really matter because the law allows the government to deport somebody who broke the country's laws. Whether or not he's the biggest threat to the country isn't the point. The point is a law was broken and a federal judge is preventing the duly elected president of the United States from enforcing immigration laws of the country. How jacked up is that? As NBC News reports here, Abrego is fighting new deportation efforts following his wrongful removal to El Salvador in March and subsequent return to the U.S. over the summer. In a Thursday ruling, U.S. District Judge Paula Zenas of Maryland ordered that Abrego be released from the processing center he's been in Pennsylvania, citing a lack of a final order of removal for him. On Friday, she also granted requests by his attorneys, which blocks the Trump administration from re-detaining Abrego until she can conduct a hearing on the temporary restraining order his attorneys had filed. The U.S. District Judge also reminded the parties of her orders from months ago that says the government must give Abrego 72 hours of written notice if they intend to deport him to another country. Abrego's legal team said yesterday afternoon that he was released. He arrived at home last night, did not speak to the media that was gathered before being hurried inside with a jacket partly shielding his face. Hey, everybody. Now, one more time there, Mark, on the song, if you could, please.
Kilmar is our neighbor.
You can't have him.
No.
No.